In today's show, Rafael Barlow from NBA Big Board joins the program, and we talk all things NBA draft and your Portland Trailblazers. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, so make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. To my everyday listeners, this is Wednesday's show, and it's a little bit late because life gets in the way, but I'm making it up to you because it's a very special one. Friend of the program. You know him from NBA Big Board, the newsletter, the podcast, the draft expert extraordinaire, Rafael Barlow. Raf, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm happy that we were able to make this happen. I know this is a busy time of year for you because you had to rewatch Carolina almost come back and beat Florida last night. My beloved Tar Heels, the kings of the quality loss. They're racking up those quality losses at 6-5 with two maybe NBA guys on the roster. So I know you're pouring over the film. You've released your mock draft 2.0 this week over on NBABigBoard.com. Go subscribe. I'm a subscriber. It's how I learn about the draft. Rafael is really the best guy doing it. Listen, if you want to know more about the draft year round, Rafael is the place you go. The podcast is 5 days a week. The newsletter's coming out multiple times a month with a ton of well-reported, well-sourced info. You've released your Big Board 2.0. Surprisingly, I can't believe you've got this name at the top. Cooper Flagg, number one overall. I'm stunned to see it. I want to ask you about this. So I think there is some, maybe from the casual fan more so than someone like you who's sort of closer into the film stuff and talking to people around college basketball. What keeps Cooper Flagg at the top? You know, I think he's going to be a good pro, but I don't know that when I've watched him the couple times I've seen him at Duke that I say like this is the best player in college basketball type of thing.
Yeah, I think the expectations were unreal. Like he came into the season with a lot of hype and expectations, and I mean I'm guilty of it too. Some thought he was going to be like the most exciting college prospect since Zion Williamson. I mean, he is athletic. He is, to me, the best high school defender I've seen that I've ever scouted, just as far as like the impact on the defensive end. And I mean, he's been good. It's just the expectations were enormous. But he stays at number one because he's extremely young. I think he's 17. He may turn 18 within the next couple of days, which is why he's barely eligible for this draft. If he were born maybe 2 weeks later, he'd have to be in the 2026 draft. But he has youth on his side. He's a good athlete, a phenomenal defender, still adjusting to playing on the perimeter. I think he's a natural 4, but Duke has him in an oversized role as a playmaker, and he's leading the team in pretty much every statistical category from points to rebounds to assists and blocks. I think he's second in steals. I mean, he's been good. He's had some really strong performances against some of the top programs. He's number one for now, but I think Dylan Harper has a legitimate shot at passing him.
Why? What? So Dylan Harper is probably one of the biggest risers of the early season of college basketball. When you wrote a risers column, it was in my inbox 10 days ago. Harper was at the top of the list. What has he done to impress scouts and impress you to move up to being like in that conversation for the number one overall pick?
Well, it's crazy to consider a guy that was projected as a top 3 pick on pretty much every board and from every scout that I talked to as a riser, but he's been better than advertised. We're talking a 6'6", 215 point guard that's averaging about 23, 4, and 4 this season. He's shooting over 50% from the floor, 70% at the rim, and he's just been able to get downhill whenever he wants to, whether it's blowing by guys with his first step. And it's like a deceptive first step. He's not like, you're a Carolina guy. Ian Jackson it's like, pew, he's just blowing by guys with
fast,
speed. While Harper is more so craft and change of pace and sneaky athleticism. But he's, like I said, 6'6", 215. And if he can't blow by the guy, then he can just kind of like run through you. So he has like that Cade Cunningham, Luka Doncic type, wide body, strong, initiates contact. And like I said, teams just not have been able to stay in front of him.
Yeah, he reminds me of Cade when I watch him. The ability to kind of get to his spots and his size. He seems a little more in control than Cade Cunningham was at the same age. I think Cade was a little more like, I'm just bigger than you. I'm going to get where I want to go. And when I watch Harper, it's like he's got he plays with a really good pace. Is he definitely a one in the pros?
I think so. Yeah, his poise and his pace is incredible. Like it's like he's been there before. Like he plays with the patience of a senior. But that's what happens when your dad is Ron Harper. I think he played like 15 years. He has an older brother that's a pro, so he definitely has a level of just calmness to his game, and it doesn't look like he's breaking a sweat. Like there were a couple games over Thanksgiving where he got to the foul line like 30 times in 2 games, and it just looked like a walk in the park, to the point where I think maybe I underestimated him in high school because maybe he was a little bored. Like if it looked easy now for him in college, then imagine how easy it was in high school when at 215 he was probably like the biggest guy on the floor.
Right.
But I think he is a one. He's not the passer that Cade is. I think Cade is a phenomenal passer, but I think he's a better finisher at the rim. Not as big as Cade, maybe a couple inches smaller. But there are some similarities. They both wear the same number. They both have the afro. Complexion is similar. So I can see how people can draw that comparison.
Yeah, I think Cade has really this season has really taken a huge step as a passer too. He's been awesome. If you haven't watched exactly, he's been able to play basketball games. It's really helpful. Yeah. As long as we're running through your top picks, Ace Bailey, who was I think in the conversation for is this the best player in the draft very early in the season, he's quote unquote slipped while Dylan Harper has skyrocketed from 3 to 2, from 3 to 1.5. Ace Bailey has plummeted from 2 all the way down to 3. What is it about Ace's game in the other direction that has scouts saying, okay, his teammate is actually a better NBA prospect?
Yeah, Ace he's young. I think one of the appeals for him is that he's only 18 also. He just has this positional size at 6'10". In theory, you would think that he's in that like Paul George, Brandon Miller, that jumbo wing that can dribble, shoot, and pass. But the problem is the handle is a work in progress, and he's not a good passer at this point. Last I looked, I think he's like at 5 assists and 23 turnovers. The shot selection is a little shaky, but when it comes to like physical tools and talent, I think that you can make a case and say he may have the best upside in this class, because if he's able to put it together, which, I guess you can say that for a lot of guys, but if he's able to put it together, you have what teams are looking for in that jumbo wing that can play the 3 and the 4, that can shoot, that can defend multiple positions, that is a good athlete, that is a 3-level scorer.
So I've watched a couple Rutgers games now, and to me, Ace Bailey just takes incredibly challenging shots. He just takes really hard shots. Sometimes they go in and you're like, oh, that's Brandon Ingram or whatever. That's like a guy who's going to live off a diet of making hard shots. I think Brandon Ingram is people would say like, oh no, drafting Brandon Ingram 3rd overall, but I would argue that's a pretty good outcome. Everyone needs to relax.
Great outcome.
Yeah, it's like it's a one-time All-Star who's like, the second best player on a good playoff team. Do you think it's just the handle with the shot selection stuff? Like, do you think it's skill stuff that he could get there, or do you think there's some sort of mentality where he doesn't want to be a hard attacker of the rim?
I think it's a little bit of both. He has a thin frame, so you probably, if you're a good shooter, you may tend to settle for jump shots as opposed to going in the lane and getting beat up. In his last game against Seton Hall, I thought he did a good job of attacking the rim. I just think that he lacks creativity off the bounce, which I debate in my head. Is that something you can teach? If not, then I don't think you can teach it in like drills. I think a lot of it just comes with just playing. And I feel like a lot of players today don't actually play pickup. You're playing in real games and like AU and tournaments, and then you're only like you're working on skills. So you may not have the freedom to showcase or try different things in the game. So I just think with him, he just needs to be a little bit creative with the ball. The handle is really like east and west, doesn't use it to go north and south. But if he can fix that, then I think he's going to be fine. I kind of compare him to Brandon Miller. Not that they're the same player, but I tell people you have to remember Brandon Miller was at least a year and a half or 2 years older than Ace during his freshman year. And so I think what Brandon Miller was as a freshman, I think Ace would be that at 20 years old.
Right, if he was a little bit older, and obviously the appeal in some ways is that he is so young. It's like the upside of a youngster. I want to ask you about some guys you're maybe higher on the consensus and some guys you're lower on the consensus. We'll do that in the second segment. Join us on the other side. But first, let me tell you that today's show is brought to you by Game Time. It's the place for buying tickets to whatever you want to go to, and it's this place that helps you save money. Game Time is an app that specializes in helping you find cheap tickets to stuff you want to see, sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is. They've got curated deals to make it easier to find the best prices on great seats. They got the all-in pricing feature, which I like. When you pull up the app, you search for exactly what you want to go to. The venue is right there. And then if you toggle in that all-in pricing feature, then what you see is what you get. So when you're searching through tickets, when you're searching through their curated deals, the price on the screen is the price you're going to pay at checkout. There are no surprise fees. Plus, you can get things like seat views, where there's a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you even make a purchase. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use that redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's show is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions and monitors your spending. It helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether that's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Rocket Money, I've used it and it's super simple. Once you sign up, it'll pull in all of your internet subscriptions from everywhere, some surprise ones that maybe you didn't know you were paying for, and you can easily cancel them in one tap. You just say cancel it. Rocket Money will take care of the rest. But you could also set finance goals. So you could say, here's how much money I want to spend on groceries for this month or for each month in perpetuity. And when you're approaching those goals, or when you've passed them, or when you're going to come up short of them and meet your goals for that month, Rocket Money will send you a little notification so you'll know that you're on track or what you need to do to get back on track. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, still chatting here with Rafael Barlow, the owner and author of NBA Big Board and the host of Locked On NBA Big Board right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Rafael, who are some guys, maybe give us two, that you're probably higher on than the consensus, with the caveat that it's freaking December, right? Like that we're a long way away from any of this being final, but in your early impressions, who are guys you're higher on than the consensus?
I would say Trey Johnson from Texas. I think everything that people want Ace Bailey to be, Trey Johnson is that right now. Yes, he takes difficult shots, but he's efficient, about 48% from the floor. He takes more threes than Ace. It's crazy. You hear so much chatter about people hating the NBA because their teams are shooting so many threes. And then you have a guy like Ace Bailey, where people are wanting him to shoot more threes because he's a good shooter and he has the tendency to settle for tough mid-range shots. While with Trey, it's a combination of both. He is shooting threes at a high volume, but he is also taking and making the tough contested mid-range shots. I live in Dallas. He's from the Dallas area, so I've seen him for years, and I'm not surprised at what he's doing. And he's a kid that I would label like a professional scorer. Like, I've seen him play ones against guys that were doing their NBA pre-draft training when he was still in high school, and he destroyed them. Like, when it comes to like scoring one-on-one, creativity, and knowing how to get a shot off and create space, to me, he's the best at it in this draft class.
He is. So I haven't seen a full game of Texas yet, but I've watched a ton of Trey Johnson highlights. he takes some hard shots off the dribble. He takes like, crossover, step back, right wing three over a contest, splash. Like, he comes off screens and fires. Like he is, like you said, professional scorer. He's a dude who can score from a lot of different spots. Is he a playmaker? Like, does he have enough variety in his game to be more than just like microwavy type guy?
I think so. I've seen him play in tournaments, and of course it was on the high school level where he knew, like, my team is better than this team. I don't need to score 30 to win. And I've seen him, like, just dominate a game as a facilitator. He just keeps he's such a gifted scorer. He keeps getting put into situations where teams want him to score. They need him to score. But I thought he showcased flashes as a playmaker his senior year where he played for Link Academy in Missouri. And then even when you watch, like, the McDonald's game, you saw, like, the flashes of court vision. So I think he's a much better passer than he gets credit for. It's just the focus is going to be on his scoring. And then on the college level, I just think, like, most teams in college already have, like, a 6'1" or 6'2" point guard that needs to
they
play.
have three of them, yeah.
Yeah, and so for him, Texas has that, and so, they need him to get buckets to win. So that's what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he's not going to be put in a role where it's like showcase all of your talent as a combo guard for the pros. It's like, hey man, we need you to score 30 because we're trying to win basketball games. And he's been doing it. Who else? Give another name that you're maybe higher on than the consensus.
Blazers fans may be familiar with Noah Asenge. So he had 20 points and 8 rebounds in the preseason or exhibition game. He is a French prospect, rail thin, about 6'9". They got him generously listed at like $195. One of the reasons I like him is because, and it's weird to say, he has so many holes in his game. Not the greatest shooter, not really like crafty at creating off the dribble, creating space, kind of without a position. But despite that, he finds ways to be productive. He had 20 points and 8 rebounds against the Blazers at 17 years old. When I was 17 years old, I was a senior in high school. He's 17 years old. He has so much room to grow. And I just think, like, what we saw, and I watched that game. I mean, I'm a Blazers fan, as some of the audience may remember. But what we saw from him in that game is like his floor. Like, that's the worst he's going to be. Once he adds, a jumper or more creative handle, then I think he's going to be really good. And he's been very productive playing in Europe at 17 years old. He gets to the foul line 5 or 6 times a game. And I think once he puts it together, I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, and he's in a good situation. He's on one of the, I feel like in my mind, and you probably know this more than me, one of the teams in Europe that will actually play a 17-year-old. He's not glued to the bench. Like, he's on a team that has like some development interest. Yeah. And so yeah, like, he's going to get burned, and he'll get an opportunity to showcase him. I liked him in the game he played here in Portland. I'm not 100% sure that if I hadn't known from reading your preview of the game that he was a pro, that I would have been like, yeah, that's a first round draft pick. But I would have been like, yeah, like the dude with the braids is pretty good. I would have been like, he's worth watching. But I'd been swayed by reading NBA Big Board. So I was like, is this dude maybe the 12th pick in the NBA draft? I was leaning that way. How about on the other side? Who are some guys that are maybe you're lower on than the consensus in the early going here?
The main one that sticks out to me is Colin Murray Boyles from South Carolina. I mean, he's crazy productive. It doesn't miss. Originally, I liked him just because he's like this. I just think he was born in the wrong era. He's like your undersized 4, wide body, but soft touch around the rim, good rebounder, good defender, very underrated passer. But I try to look at like the trends of the NBA, and it's just hard to find someone that looks like him. I think he's like 6'6", 6'7", 250 pounds. I mean, the days of your Corliss Williamsons and undersized 4s where you get the ball on the block, I mean, that's just rare. And he doesn't space.
Bring back Luis Scola. Let's see it.
But even Luis just had counter move on top of counter move on top of counter move. And he was very crafty. And even then, like, if he were in this draft, you wonder, like, where's the fit, because teams just aren't giving guys the ball on the block anymore. And so Murray Boyles doesn't space the floor. And even though he's a good passer, I don't see him as like the point forward passer, like a Draymond Green type. I think he's a guy that is at his best if he's getting touches on the block and is the hub, and then he can make teams pay because he's, good enough to draw a double and he has the court vision to find open guys. But I just don't see a situation for him where there's a team that's going to give him the ball on the block and say, hey, go to work.
Yeah, you get 9 post-ups a game or whatever it is.
Yep.
A couple guys that have dropped slightly in your big board from 1 to 2. VJ Edgecombe, who I think was a hot name for as a top 5 pick and is slipping a little bit. What has gone on with VJ at Baylor that has made him slip? Like, he's still a lottery type talent, but I think he was in a higher conversation before, as opposed to now that the season has started. Yeah,
coming in, I thought he was a top 5 pick. A lot of it is because he just was so phenomenal representing the Bahamas.
Yeah, he was
at the FIBA qualifiers. I mean, DeAndre Ayton was on the team, Eric Gordon, Buddy Hield was on that team. Yep. And there were times where he looked like he may have been the best player. And then he just got off to like a terrible start. I want to say he was like 4 for 15 in his first 2 games against Arkansas and Gonzaga. And he really struggled. And I talked to some scouts about it. There's one scout that was pretty blunt. He said, well, I've seen guys look good when they're playing with NBA players because the NBA players are smart. These are the best players in the world. They know how to get you the ball and create space and just kind of, you're playing with better players. And he felt like maybe he'll look better in the NBA because he will be playing with better players. And then there's some scouts that feel like because he was playing with better players, it was able to hide some of his flaws. And he really just had to go out there and be an athlete. And he is a phenomenal athlete. Like, he's a, A+ athlete. I don't know if he's in the Shaedon Sharpe category, but he is on that level of an athlete. But to me, slipped a little bit. The jump shot's a little shaky. Even though he's put up good assist numbers, I don't see him as like a creator. I see him as more so of a connective passer. But defensively, he's stuffing the stat sheet. But I have concerns about his just offensive game, his offensive role. But then also I have to look at Keontae George didn't look good at Baylor because Baylor usually has a log jam with guards. And I just want to know how tall he measures out at. Like, I was at the Hoop Summit in Portland, and I think he measured short at like 6'3". Then all of a sudden, like, the numbers changed. If he measures out at 6'3", then I wonder how much does that hurt him because 6'3", 3-and-D guards don't really.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to be an impactful, like, undersized shooting guard in the league. There are guys who can do it, but shout out to his Bahamian teammate Eric Gordon. That role doesn't exist as much anymore as like tough 6'3" wing. Is just like not a thing that maybe exists much longer. The other guy you had that's maybe slipped a little bit on your board is Nolan Traore from Saint Quentin in France. He was I think he was a hot name to be a top 5 pick, maybe the first point guard off the board, or at least right up there with Harper. What has he done in Europe so far this season that has kind of maybe dropped him back a tiny bit?
Yeah, he struggled. I mean, he's struggling, and the flashes are there. I just think he's in a tough situation because if he were playing college basketball, I think he looked a lot better. And then I feel like some of the guys that we like in this draft, that if they were in his situation, they may not look as good. Just a rough situation for him simply because the jump shot's not falling. He's a little predictable on offense, but he has what you want in a modern day point guard. He has blow by speed. He's a good passer, kind of struggles finishing at the rim. I guess that may sound a little familiar with Blazers fans. But yeah, I think he has the tools that teams are looking for. And I still think he's going to end up in the lottery, but the numbers are pretty rough this year. And it's been up and down. Like, he's had some games where he's had 20 points and he's looked phenomenal. And then he's had games where he just looks like he's a teenager trying to figure out how to be a pro in a respectable league in Europe.
Right, to make that jump to true professional basketball every single night. Okay, I want to ask you some questions. Particularly, I know you're I know you're a fit over best player available guy, and the Blazers might have to come up against that exact type of question when they navigate the draft in June. We'll talk about that on the other side. Join us in the third segment. First, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook and an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And if you're watching NFL games as we wind down into the regular season, you can get in on the action live. Because if you're a new customer and you bet $5, you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to tackle all that action live and place your live bets all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can open up the FanDuel app and you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $100. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by BILT. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to BILT, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable BILT points on your rent every day and everyday spending with no extra cost. You can redeem those points for flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments with over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program. The possibilities are endless. You can also access unique experiences that are exclusive to BILT members. So if you sign up for BILT and you are a points person, the everyday purchases you already are making, like paying your rent, you can use those to accumulate BILT points, and then you can get rewarded for just making it through everyday life. And then you can go take yourself on a little vacation. You can book a nice hotel, a quick weekend getaway, or something longer if you're into it. Start earning points on your rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. Still chatting here with Rafael Barlow of NBA Big Board. Subscribe to the newsletter. Check out the podcast wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Rafael, I know you're a fit guy, right? You say that the best player available has to fit on the roster, because if there's no place for them to play, they're not the best player available. You strongly believe in it. You've probably convinced me of it, mostly because I trust your eyes. I believe in you. But the Blazers have an interesting situation where they might find themselves with a high draft pick and a lot of talented guards on, at least available to them. With the way Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe have played, would you be comfortable, say, if you're in the shoes of the Blazers front office, in drafting a guard over the top of either of them?
I would take Dylan Harper over Scoot.
Yeah,
I would. The Blazers are in an interesting dilemma. I like Shaedon. I like him a lot. He's been healthy. Scoot, I started to have reservations about Scoot probably around this time 2 years ago. And I was really disappointed when he shut it down for the Ignite his last year with minor injuries. I felt like, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, I feel like he was trying to protect his draft stock because it was slipping a little bit. And on one hand, maybe that was the right thing for him to do financially, because he didn't slide any further. He still went number 3. I definitely don't think he goes number 3 in a redraft.
Right.
So on one hand, maybe that was smart. Added couple, $100,000 in his pocket. I'm the type of person that I do believe fit is important, but I don't think Scoot has done enough right now to where you say he's our point guard of the future. It's only been not even a year and a half, but the signs are a little discouraging. And maybe some of it is because of the hype, and maybe just that strong performance he had against Victor 2 years ago kind of, it made the expectations incredible, but he was like phenomenal that game. But then
he was so good. Yeah.
Yeah. You see flashes, but bring, if the best player available is another guard, then I would say, hey, bring them in and make them figure it out. I feel like that's what they did at the center position. They didn't not draft a center because they had Ayton on the roster.
Yeah, and then they still have all those guys on the roster here. I mean, it's like we're 25 games in or whatever. They have plenty of time to figure that out. But I think it's pretty clear that they said, okay, Donovan Clingan, we believe in him and his future more than the medium term future of DeAndre Ayton, and I think that will take care of itself. And I would imagine they'll end up trading Rob Williams, and so we'll see how it all shakes out. Other than Dylan Harper, is there any other point guards in this class where you say, oh, okay, that's a no brainer? Type of thing, or is it Harper and then a kind of a drop?
I like Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma. He's a freshman reclass, supposed to be a senior in high school, just turned 18 in October. He has like real blow by speed, like doesn't need a screen. He can get to the cup. He shows flashes of creativity. He is a solid passer. I mean, I think with his speed that he doesn't need to be like phenomenal. He just needs to be able to drive and kick because he's going to be able to get 2 feet in the paint. There was one particular game where he got like in the paint, 2 feet in the paint, like 7 possessions in a row. That's how fast he is.
Wow. And
I think he looked better with NBA spacing. And I think he has a really high upside, and he's come out of nowhere. He wasn't even on my radar coming into the season, and now I have him in the top 10. And so I think that he would be someone that I would consider taking over Scoot. I can't figure out like what's the deal with Scoot. You know, at one point you thought like, was it the vision? Was it he couldn't see? He just hasn't lived up to the expectations. And so I think that, you know, maybe some competition or a spark of fire under him. I think he was literally just given the job because of where he was drafted and the expectations. And so, and now, you know, he's coming off the bench, or I don't know if he started like the last game or so. But yeah, I would bring in another point guard over him. I would.
Yeah, I think that if you don't have to like chase a point guard in this draft, but if the board were to break that way, I think it makes total sense. I think the harder stuff is if it's like the VJ Edgecombe's of the world, if it's like a combo-y guard and you feel like, well, we are comfortable with what Shaedon Sharpe is, but type of thing. Do we want to spend, you know, say the Blazers have like 4 or 5 in the draft. Do you want to spend high draft capital on like a pretty good combo-y guard that you don't feel the same way? It's like in a perfect world, they would be just drafting Cooper Flagg or like fully actualized Ace Bailey. And it would be like, yeah, this player not only is really talented, but fits a position of need, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it gets trickier if you're like in that deeper and you have to make decisions about like, well, we kind of like Deni Avdija at 3 and Toumani Camara and Shaedon Sharpe, but we're going to draft over the top of them. I don't think like Toumani is someone that you worry about drafting over the top of, but the team likes him. And I think, you know, the Blazers need talent. So that's the first and foremost thing. But I think they find themselves in an interesting position there. I wonder like this, like, do you think this is, can you see a situation where it's like a Kings Halliburton situation where they just say, this is the best dude on the board, we'll figure it out later? Like, are you in favor of that type of approach where you just say like, well, hey, we think this guy is so much better than any other player we could get. We'll kind of like face the music down the line. What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, you know, that Kings Halliburton Fox situation, and like Tyrese Halliburton was a guy that I feel weird saying this. I feel like I was 100% right about him and wrong at the same time. Like, he didn't get to the foul line in college. I didn't think he'd be able to shoot mid-range jumpers because the shot is a little funky. I thought he was a guy that was a connective guard that you can play next to a small guard. He can be like your starting 2. He can be your point. I just thought he was like a very good connector. I did not see him as like the lead dog. And so I felt like Sacramento probably thought along the lines of how I was thinking. And then, you know, come to find out that Tyrese could be a lead dog. With that being said, I don't know if there is that guy in this draft for Portland where there's a, you know, combo guard that's like 6'7", that can play with Scoot if Scoot's the guy and then be the backup. Maybe Kaspar Jakachonis. He's kind of doing it at Illinois. He's 6'6". He's shooting. I mean, the shooting splits are phenomenal, but I think he's best with the ball in his hands. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know if there is a guard that can both play with Scoot and then be like the the backup or the future, or maybe there is something similar where you can trade them and get a Sabonis type person that would work.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Maybe there. Yeah. I think was Kasparis end with Demon from BYU. It's like there's some big creators out there that could be like, okay, they're not maybe point guards, but they could be primary creator types and would allow you some more lineup versatility. So I think, like, do you view either of those guys as true ones? Like I haven't watched a full BYU game. I did see Illinois finally play. I saw them play Tennessee. Are those two dudes? And I'll get you out of here on this. Are those guys point guards? What position are they?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, maybe Yegor could be like the Tyrese Halliburton type. I've been watching him for a while, and I've actually went out and watched him play in person in Madrid last year around this time. I do think that he is the best passer in this draft. The question about can he play point full time may have a lot to do with the handle. And I mean, he got off to a phenomenal start. Like his first 4 games, I mean, he just looked like, like he could be in conversation, go top 5. And then against Power 5 competition, he kind of struggled a little bit, had an 0 for 10 game against Providence. And what I saw in that Providence game is that they just put a smaller guard on him and just got up in his chest and made him work. And he kind of struggled with that a little bit. But luckily for him, he's 6'8", 6'9". So if he ends up being a secondary ball handler, that's great. So I guess maybe he could be. I mean, he's a different player than Tyrese Halliburton, but maybe he could be that guy that, all right, maybe he can play with Scoot, and maybe he could end up being like the point guard of the future, but he can probably play both positions. And then he's splitting ball reps now at Illinois, but I think he's best with the ball in his hands. And even though he's shooting like 40% from 3 right now, I don't know if I fully believe in the shooting splits right now. We'll see. I mean, I think he's going to come down to about 35, 36, which is fair. You'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, if you shoot league average and you can create off the dribble, you can be a pro. I mean, it's when you start to slip down to below 33 when it becomes a problem. Rafael, you're the best. Thanks so much for joining the program. Listeners, if you want to learn more about the draft year round, subscribe to the NBA Big Board newsletter. Rafael's dropping things in your inbox a couple times a week. You're learning about pros. He's talking to scouts. He's talking to coaches. He's talking to NBA personnel. He's got the inside scoop, and he's giving it to you. Plus, Locked On NBA Big Board, 5 days a week wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. It's how the network works, baby. We do a lot of these freaking shows. That's how this show works too. I know this one's a little late, but we're still going to have 5 this week, so look for another one in your feeds tomorrow. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.